welcome back to the Ghoul Guide Association, the show / community organisation / definitely not a cult, where we talk about all things Gothic, history and pop culture. My name is Lauren.
And I'm Mary.
And we, of course, are the Ghoul Guides. And this is a So You Don't Like Horror episode. And it's a year-end episode.
Yes.
Technically, we are now in 2026, but this is a year-end episode.
We are going to be talking about the last films that I saw in November and December of last year. Then we're going to run through our kind of like year highlights. But then we're going to be at the end talking about what we're looking forward to this year. I was going to say this week. This year. So stick around to the end if you want some 2026 content highlights, what to look forward to. This is So You Don't Like Horror, which has one scaredy cat, Lauren, one horror fan, me, talking about lots of scary movies in a way that hopefully those of you who are scaredy cats but like spooky stuff and wish that you could watch horror films can maybe vicariously enjoy some of the horror releases, and also maybe find out if there are any that you think you could brave yourself. So if you haven't listened to our back catalogue yet, what are you waiting for? Go and listen to all of our episodes from last year.
But only after this one.
If you are here and you haven't subscribed to any, if you enjoy any of our videos, please do subscribe and also like our videos. We do like that as well.
Or the podcast if you're on
or the podcast,
Apple Music or Spotify or any of the other platforms that we're on. I'll fully confess, despite the fact it's my job, I don't know exactly which ones we're on. The RSS feed was like, do you want to be on this one? And I was like, yeah, sure. So if we're not on one, and you wish we were, let me know and I'll put it on there.
And give us a shout out in the comments in whatever platform you're listening to. Tell us where you're listening from. We love to hear from you guys.
Yeah. And I've made a resolution to try and be better at our Instagram this year. And like post more updates, but also like content and like what we're reading and things like that. So do please go and find us on Instagram at the Ghoul Guides. And I promise I will be better at posting and doing stories. I finally figured out how to make a reel, which, considering I'm like a communications officer, is really poor. But, I spend a lot of my day doing comms for other people, and then sometimes I don't want to do it for myself. But I promise I will be more motivated for the sake of the association.
Help motivate us by liking and commenting on our videos and episodes.
Peer pressure me into using Instagram more.
Let's begin with one of my favourite sections, and that is Audience Recommends, which we always like to start our So You Don't Like Horror episodes off with. I love hearing from you. Lauren loves hearing from you. So if you have any horror films that you've watched, be they old or new, that we haven't mentioned, or you just, you want to either recommend it to me or Lauren, then leave us a comment, send us an email, send us a picture, or telepathically send us some kind of sign, and we'll get it eventually. So Audience Recommends is where you, dear listeners, dear watchers, get to recommend your faves, and we have a very special one this episode to kick us off for the new year, and that is a recommendation from my partner Craig.
Craig, number one sandwich maker.
Yeah,
my guy.
He does make very excellent sandwiches. Yeah, he's the best. But he has wanted to recommend this one for a while. Unfortunately, I don't think this is one that you can watch, Lauren, because there is a lot of violence. But it's a very, very fun horror comedy that is called Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
It's also got clowns in.
It's got clowns in. It is so it's
I fucking hate clowns.
It's from 1988. It's an American kind of science fiction comedy horror produced by the Chiodo brothers. They write, they direct it, they do all the kind of prosthetics and makeup. It's basically, imagine if there was a spaceship that was shaped like a clown tent and it landed in America.
Do you mean a circus tent?
I do mean a circus tent. I do mean
tent.
Yes, I do mean a circus tent.
Sorry.
We're going to leave that in. That's fine. Yep. Circus tent, shaped like a circus tent, and all of the aliens are like appear like clowns, and they are essentially going out and kidnapping or killing humans to take them back to put them in a kind of candy floss cocoon where they then eat them, drain the power. It sounds really random, but it's honestly so fun because it really leans into the kind of clown aesthetic and the, you know, the funny like costumes and funny weapons that are used. So if you haven't seen this, then it is ridiculous. But yeah, Craig showed it to me a few weeks ago, and it's really funny. And I enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed it a lot more than he thought that I would. But I'm like, this is exactly what I love about Gothic and horror, and it's that campy funness. So it's got that in, yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe if you've watched Welcome to Derry and you're looking for like more extraterrestrial killer clowns, but different vibes, maybe
very different vibes. Yeah,
killer clowns from outer space.
Very, very different vibes.
Completely different tones. Same different flavors.
Exactly. Yes. So that is our audience recommends. Thank you, Craig, for an excellent recommendation. Again, let us know if you have any that you want to recommend to us, and we'll feature them in our next episode. But for now, it's time to move on to the episode proper and get into some of the films that I saw in November and December of 2025, which honestly seems like so long ago.
Seems really long ago.
So apologies if I forget certain things about the films, but hopefully the notes that I wrote down at the time will guide me through them.
Yeah.
So, okay, the first film that I'm going to talk to you about, Lauren, I don't know if you've heard anything about this. It's called Shelby Oaks.
I have, because you went to see this after I saw you.
Yes.
So I Googled it.
Okay.
And it did sound like an interesting premise, but the reviews were not great. But that isn't always a signifier with horror, because often with Gothic and horror, things I think are good don't get well reviewed. You know, famously Crimson Peak, one of my favorite films. So I didn't let that sway my judgment, but I did Google the premise.
Yeah. So for those of you who listened to our bonus episode about celluloid screams, which you can find it on our channel or on our wherever you find our podcasts, I talk about a film called Man Finds Tape, which is a found footage film about a town in America that involves a YouTuber and also is involves the church of the community, the preacher, and that kind of, as I said, in that kind of review of that film, there are elements of sexual abuse and child sexual abuse there, and I think
trauma.
And religious trauma, yeah. And I think that it really uses the found footage element in a really interesting way in that film. Shelby Oaks is kind of similar, but in a different way. But so there isn't...
interesting, because I did think of Shelby Oaks when you were talking about Man Finds Tape. So I was like, oh, isn't that other film you went to see also like found footage?
Yeah, so it is found footage. It's written and directed by Chris Stuckman, and this is his full-length feature film debut. And Stuckman actually began his career as a kind of film critic online. So he would review films on YouTube, as we are now in part doing with his film.
What goes around comes around.
Yeah. He launched, so in March 2022, he launched a Kickstarter to help fund his film project, which then became Shelby Oaks. And this
Mhm.
Kickstarter became the most funded horror film on the site, literally just a few
Oh,
weeks after it
wow.
launched. Yeah, right? It ended up raising over $1 million. And initially his goal was $250,000. So people were very
That's
interested in
pretty
this
impressive.
project. And I think that's really interesting as well, just to kind of get a sense of the community behind it and the support that he had. People very
Mhm.
people were very much backing what he was doing, and I think that's a really nice thing. Anyway, I'll just put that out there. um
Mhm.
it's nice to build a community and have that support. So as I said, yeah, it's a found footage film, and it actually blends footage, some of which is taken from YouTube, but there's also a kind of documentary aspect to it. So the film
Okay.
initially starts as if you're in the middle of a documentary, and it follows Mia Brennan as she's searching for her sister Riley 12 years after she's gone missing. So it's one of
Mhm.
those documentaries that you and I are
Mhm.
really into, where it's, this person went missing, and here we're following her family and
Mhm.
seeing what that loss, how that has
Mhm.
impacted their life, what they're doing to still to to still find this person, and also kind of learn a little bit about the person that went missing. So we then find out that Riley was a paranormal investigator, also on YouTube, which again, like, you and I have watched several shows on YouTube that
Yep.
that are in that vein. So I
Big
think,
fans of YouTube ghost hunting.
yeah, so really interesting. And she was, so Riley, the sister that went missing, she was part of a group called the Paranormal Paranoids, which also included individuals called Laura Tucker, David Reynolds, and Peter Bailey. And all four of them went missing at the same time. So this was part of their, they were filming and investigating a site, and then all four of them went missing.
Okay, so this
And
is very Blair Witch.
it's very Blair Witch, yeah. So you can see where, like, Chris Stuckman has
Mhm.
kind of like taken inspiration from the
Mhm.
found footage genre, which makes sense. A, if you're doing this kind of film, but also if you have, if you love this genre and know it quite well.
Mhm.
So they were investigating a prison in the ghost town of Shelby Oaks, which is a town that basically no one lives in anymore. It's been abandoned, hence ghost town.
Mhm.
3 bodies were discovered. So her 3 kind of fellow investigators, their bodies were
Hoengus, yeah.
discovered, but Riley's wasn't. And so it
Mhm.
it kind of made this whole phenomena where, because they were YouTube stars, and at the kind
Yes.
of starting point of when YouTube was starting to get big, and they
Mhm.
went missing in this way, they're paranormal investigators, they're online,
Mhm.
they have a following, people got very into it, looking through all of their content, watching their videos, reading their comments,
Mhm.
trying to trace their last steps and everything. So it is this whole big thing, and you get that in the kind of opening documentary kind of part of the found footage.
Got you.
Um, Stuckman actually released some of the footage that would then later go on to be the Paranormal Paranoids own YouTube shows on
This
YouTube.
is really do you remember the Lonely Girl, was it like Lonely Girl 5 or Lonely Girl 15 web series?
I
Where
don't think
it
I
was like
do
one of the
know.
first it was like one of the first YouTube web series, and it was like they didn't know whether or not it was real, and
Yeah.
people she was like part of some weird religion, and it was like, is it real? Is it not real? And it was like one of the first sort of YouTube phenomenons that was
Mm,
kind of playing with that idea of YouTube being social media, but also like produced creative media. Um, and obviously Blair Witch kind of did that too. Like, it had a real website and everything. So this to me is giving someone who has a real love for that early transition into normal people having access to, making, producing and putting video content out for consumption. Like, this sounds like a bit of a love letter to like early YouTube and creepypasta and like ARGs like Ong's Hat and things like that. I really like the sort of the primordial soup that has produced this.
I also think because we're gothicists, we quite like that extra textual material.
Oh my
The
god, don't we just?
the advertisements that come at the
Mhm.
beginning of novels, or other kinds of materials that fit
Yeah.
into maybe epistolary novels, or
Mhm.
as you mentioned with Blair Witch Project, is such a great example, because they paid the actors to go into hiding for a bit and then
Mhm.
genuinely put out missing posters, and that was part
Yeah.
of the
Well, yeah,
marketing
and
for
I
the
think with
film.
Lonely Girl, I think they like scrubbed it was really easy to scrub their
Yeah,
social media because it was
yeah.
like when did YouTube start? 2006? It would have been like 2008 maybe. And I remember the same thing, like, and people were like, "Oh, well, like trying, like her bedroom furniture was all from like the same, I don't know, it's from like Walmart or something." And I remember that sort of feeling of like it can't be true, but what if it is? And even back then at like 19 being like this is definitely not true, but being excited by that little weirdness, that little metatextuality, and being like, "Oh my god, but what if it is? Like, what if she is really part of some fucking weird cult? Like,
And yeah,
and
and
she's vlogging?"
I I should, maybe I should do something with this. I don't know. Maybe I'll do a video about it. But like, I think that one of the elements of the Gothic is that playfulness, where it invites
Yes.
you to be a part of the narrative. And I think that this is the Blair Witch Project is doing what things like the Castle of Otranto did before, where it
Mhm.
invites you, even before you've read or watched
Mhm.
anything, to be a part of the investigation and the
Yes.
story. And so Stuckman put these videos out on
Yep.
YouTube, and it was basically a guerrilla marketing campaign. So people didn't know what it was
So
about.
clever.
And then you'd see stuff about Riley and Shelby Oaks, and then by the time his trailer and everything came out, you've
Mhm.
already got that kind of groundwork there. And
Mhm.
I find, I find it so fascinating, and I think it's such a good way of marketing films to do something a bit more playful. We talked about it with Together as well, where
Mhm.
you
Yep.
had Alison Brie and Dave Franco just being really weird together, because they can, because
Yeah,
they're married in real life, and
that was a
that's,
great press tour.
yeah, exactly. Um, so that is the kind of introduction of the film, and the kind of basic
Mhm.
story. We have then the footage that was aired, and then Mia is also sent footage that the paranormal paranoids had shot that hadn't been seen. Um,
Mhm.
and the whole thing is, how do you have this? The only way that you'd have access to this footage is if
Mhm.
you got it from then, when they died, or when Riley was disappeared. And
Mhm.
the way that Mia gets this tape, and again, this is why it's this film, if you're interested in this kind of found footage slash trauma, and abuse kind of narrative, it works really well with Man Finds Tape. A man turns up at her doorstep with a tape, so it is that kind of like, here's something.
Mhm.
And then, now this is a spoiler, so if you want to enjoy the film a bit more, maybe skip ahead. But essentially, he gives it to Mia, says she finally let me go, and then shoots himself in the head. And this is
Okay.
all happening while the documentary team
It's
are
funny.
are filming and running. And then I think this is where a lot of the criticism for the film comes from, is it was marketed as a found footage film. And then as soon as you have that incident, it
It
turns
switches.
into a more traditional
Mhm.
narrative. And I think people didn't like that. I think it works, but I also can
Yeah.
understand why you'd maybe feel a bit cheated. But
Mhm.
I don't know how
So
else it would work with.
is it still shot as a documentary once it gets
No,
started?
no. So at that point,
Oh,
it then becomes a traditional kind of
got you.
narrative, where you do see bits of
Mhm.
film footage that have been shot, but it is more of a traditional narrative that's
Yeah.
following Mia. I don't
Mhm.
mind it, but I also understand why people
Yeah.
would feel a
Mhm.
bit cheated. So we then learn at this point that Riley had a history of night terrors that she had as a child, which is partly where her interest in the paranormal came from. She had experiences at night that were maybe night terrors, but also were maybe
Yeah.
supernatural. And then we also learn that Mia and her husband were struggling to conceive. And partly, obviously, they've put their lives on hold a bit to look for Riley, but also there is that kind of underlying tension between them where
Mhm.
they want a child and they want to kind of build and grow their own family. So there's this big thing of like her sister's missing, and then also what do we do about our own problems. So
Mhm.
that is most of the film, and now I'm going to spoil it for you, Lauren, because I know you want to know where it ends.
I absolutely
um,
want to know where it ends.
so if you absolutely want to avoid spoilers, skip ahead. So she Mia goes and visits the prison and the ghost town of Shelby Oaks. She meets with a woman whose son, it turns out, was one of the prisoners when the prison was still um,
Mhm.
in use. And then she gets very, very suspicious. The mother is very old, and her house is, not very well kept. It's in a kind of ramshackly. They're basically the only people that are living in this area because it's a ghost town. So Mia is like very, very suspect. And then she thinks, oh my gosh, my sister's here. And yeah, her sister is there. She goes down into the basement and she finds her sister and tries to rescue her. Then they end up in the attic where there is a baby. And TLDR, this mother has been worshipping a demon called it's an incubus demon called Tarian.
Oh,
She
okay.
had been, I guess, impregnated when she was younger, leading to her child. She then continued to worship this demon and helped her son to kidnap Riley when she was impregnated. And you can see that there is a lot of abuse, sexual like
Mhm.
trauma, forced birth narratives in this film. You can see a lot of the kind of graves and then pictures of Riley over the 12 years where she's been pregnant, but they have this baby there. Mia ends up managing to get her sister away and I think kill both of the mother and the father. We see an instance of night terror when the two girls were younger, which earlier in the film it had been explained Riley had been having all of these night terrors and she had seen this demon watching her. And obviously the demon is Tarian. But then we see
Mhm.
that incident again, and Mia says there was one night where I was awake and I saw this demon. And it's kind of like, well, who was Tarian looking for? They all end up, the documentary crew kind of come back, do some interviews. You've been reunited with your sister, isn't this amazing? And
Mhm.
what are you going to do with this child? And Mia is like, we're going to keep the child, obviously,
The
all,
the
all this love.
demon incubus baby?
Yes. And Riley is like, absolutely not. Warning of violence, and she tries to kill the demon baby. Mia is like,
Mhm.
no, and ends up pushing her sister out of a window. So I think this is a really interesting film about cycles of abuse because
Mhm.
it's really, Mia is somebody who has struggled with conceiving, and now she's been presented with what seems like an amazing opportunity to have her own
Mhm.
child. But to do that, she has to ignore her sister's trauma and her sister's abuse,
Mhm.
which is also kind of what the mother had also done. So it's like the
Yeah,
demon is
it's
like
like
a stand in
perpetuation.
for, yeah, yeah. So I thought
Yeah.
in that way it was interesting, and why I think it pairs really well with Man Finds Tape. But also I can understand, like, it's quite a lot to kind of take in at the end. This happens quite quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah,
What is it
I
with all evil old women in
yeah
horror cinema in the last few
yeah
years?
I know, it's that old crone women's bodies as horrific, and
Mhm.
also conception and birthing
Conception.
horror. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily where I thought this film was going, but I think it was a pretty decent film.
Yeah.
It was trying to do something different, I guess, with the found
Yes.
footage way that
Yeah,
it
trying to play with the genre, trying
mm,
to experiment, do something new, which is what it's really
yeah.
all about. So, okay, so what, like a mid-level,
I think so. Yeah,
like,
it's enjoyable, and I will also say I'm not really one to jump in the cinema, or but I did really jump at one bit in this film. Very rare for me to do.
oh,
Um,
I would have shit myself then.
and then there was another bit in the film. Is why it's really fun to watch these in the cinema. There were a kind of group of girls behind us, and at one bit, one of the girls screamed out in terror. Then all of her friends started laughing. So it is, I think, yeah,
That would
like
be
a pretty
me.
solid, like enjoyable, kind of scary
Yeah.
film. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Cool. Shelby Oaks, solid, not the best thing ever, but enjoyable and has some good jumps.
Yes.
Great.
Moving on, the next film that I want to offer to you is one that I think that you would enjoy, and that is Predator Badlands.
Is this the one with Elle
Yeah.
Fanning?
Yes. Yes.
I Okay, good, because the trailer for this
Uh-huh.
really, really intrigued me. And I've never really been that interested in Predator. I forced myself to sit through the first two Alien films because I really like the concept of Alien. And they do absolutely terrify me. But Predator I've never been super like interested in. And then when the trailer for this came out, I was like, this looks really fucking interesting and fun.
I love the Predator franchise. I think it's really interesting. So one of the most recent iterations of the film with Amber Midthunder, that was set
Is
in,
this a
was it 18th?
series?
Not the series, the film Prey, which came out in
Yes.
2022, and it was set in 17th or 18th century or 19th century America.
It's like colonial era
As
America, isn't
the
it?
colonial era where you have the kind of the frontiers, and both,
Mm-hmm.
well, in the film it's mainly French expansionists and French colonists, and I think deservedly so. That film was all about colonialism and Native Americans and indigenous populations, and the violence of being invaded, and
Mm-hmm.
that expansion. And I think that then you also have a predator in the mix, and that's essentially what they always do. They think they're better than everyone else,
Mm-hmm.
and they view everything through
Mm-hmm.
that dominionist lens, which is, I am at the top of the
Mm-hmm.
food chain, I am better than everyone else. I
Mm-hmm.
think, having seen all the films, those themes are foundational to all of the films. The first film,
Mm.
especially with Arnold Schwarzenegger, I think is all of those themes. And you can argue whether they're subtextual or textual. I don't think they're as subtextual as
Mm-hmm.
maybe people think, because it is
Well,
all about, it's set in a,
yeah.
I forget now where the original Predator film is set, but it's in a kind of like jungle
I was gonna
area
say it's
where
a
there's
jungle, and
guerrilla warfare, American kind of
well,
militia.
I don't know if it
It's
is explicitly, but I always assumed that it was either like Vietnam or
mhm.
Myanmar or
Yeah, yeah.
like one of those ASEAN countries. But I mean, I will confess that I remember the Predator parody song, one of
Yeah,
YouTube's early greats, better than I actually remember the Predator movie, which
yeah,
is, they famously make "If it bleeds, we can kill it" into
yeah.
like a song. Um, truly a sensational piece of late 2000s internet art. If you don't know it, go and check it out. It's wonderful. But I always thought that the first Predator film was a anti-colonial, anti-war, like
yeah,
anti-American warfare, because it's
100%.
like, this is what you get when you invade.
Yeah.
Whereas the newer ones seem to be like like in the first one, I always got the impression that the Predator was like the punishment for the invasion, but then it didn't quite like they win essentially. Like, but it's a long time since I've seen it and not that song.
I think the Predator monster is basically like holding up a mirror to our society and being like, look, isn't this monstrous and bad? Yeah. And I kind of like the Predators as well. I think I think as much as I love the alien monster, I think the Predators are better. But
Predators have a really good design. Maybe I should go back and watch the first one, because I do remember finding it fun.
There is one.
I would have maybe been too young to really get the nuance. I think I'd have been like 17.
There is one film in the Predator franchise, and I think it's called The Predator or something. I don't know. I've forgotten the title, because essentially it's like autism is like the biological evolutionary peak, and it's just so offensive.
Well, Mary, as two autistic women, I think we can safely say it's obviously the evolutionary peak. I definitely didn't knock my laptop off 3 times when I was trying to set up my camera today.
But yeah, like, so that is the Predator franchise. I really like the Predator franchise. I think they're just really great films with a consistent kind of political message, apart from that one, which we won't talk about anymore. This film is unlike the other ones. It's set in space. So it entirely takes place in space. And though obviously there are human actors, there are no human characters. Either the characters are aliens or robots, which is where you get that. It's the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, which is the same corporation that initially sent Ripley into space in Alien.
Because it's like the robot that Michael Fassbender plays in Prometheus, but less unsettling, perhaps.
Exactly. So
I also really enjoyed, and you might not have picked this up because it's not your bag, but just from the trailers, it gave me big Star Wars, because in the second in Empire Strikes Back, I almost said Emperor's New Groove.
Very well. I mean, I didn't get those vibes from this film.
Which is a Disney film about a llama, and it is fantastic, but that's not what I was going for. In Empire Strikes Back, you have 2 things that happen. You have C-3PO getting torn apart, and Chewbacca is trying to put him together, and he ends up having to strap C-3PO to his back with no legs. And then you also have Luke training on Dagobah with Yoda in the backpack on his back. And I just thought, like, this is a, like, coming-of-age training film, and it's in space, and you have the rookie or the guy proving itself with the robot / wise one on their back. And I just thought that feels to me like a really loving nod to sci-fi and to Star Wars.
Absolutely. I am not as into sci-fi or space stuff, especially as you are, but I think that if you love those kind of space epics, space operas, those kinds of things, then this is a film for you. And it also has its rating, I think, in the UK is a 12A, because
that's pretty decent, hey?
Yeah, because whilst there is a lot of violence and there is a lot of blood, it's not human, and it's also not red. So all of the blood is blue or green or that kind of thing. So, so it's fine.
Space blood.
Exactly, yeah. So the film stars, as you mentioned, Elle Fanning. She plays Thea, who is a Weyland-Yutani Corporation android. And she also plays her twin android. So there are essentially two Elle Fannings, one of which ends up having no legs and ends up on the back of a predator, but one of which does have legs. And we also have this is, I apologize if I mess his name up, Demetrius Schuster Kulamathangi, who plays Dek, who is a young exiled Yautja, which is the
Oh, he's
predators.
exiled.
So Dek is hunting a monster or an animal called the Kalisk on what's known as the death planet Genna, and he wants to prove himself to his father. So he is kind of a little bit of what's known in predator families as a runt. Even though he's massive, he's not as big as his brother and he's not as big as his dad. You meet them on their home planet, where you then find out that while his brother, who is probably one of the predators that we've seen in the other Predator films, and there are some kind of Easter eggs to those other films in his spaceship, his brother was meant to take Dek out and kill him, because that's what you do. His dad had said,
Yep.
this is a runt, not worth it, kill him. So because his brother didn't do that, his dad was like, you're weak then, and killed his brother. Dek managed to get onto the spaceship and go out. And the coming of age thing that Yautja do is you go on a solo mission, you say what your prey is going to be, and then you bring it back dead.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, if everyone, he was talking to his brother before his dad killed his brother, this is the most feared prey. No other Yautja has ever been anywhere near successful. The people that have gone to this death planet have not brought back anything. So I'm gonna do this. His brother's like, yeah, no, please don't do that.
Sure.
But then he dies. So whatever. So they end up on this planet, and then he ends up bringing along Elle, Thea, who, because she's a robot, he's like, well, you're not a person then, so that doesn't matter, because I'm doing this on my own and you're a robot, so you don't count. So that's how she ends up tied to this his back. And yeah, that is the film, and I kind of don't want to spoil this for you because I think you would really enjoy this film.
I think I will. You know what? I think I'm going to rewatch the first Predator movie, because one thing about me, and Mary does know this, is I have a real soft spot for an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's gone out of my head, but the one about Mars is like one of my favorite films, which I know sounds unrealistic since I can't. Total Recall. Total Recall. Yes. So I might rewatch Predator and then I might watch this, because I feel like I remember you telling me that Prey was probably too violent.
Yeah. I think so. But this has, as I said,
Predator.
no humans in this. You do find out more about the Kalisk, and there also are evil robots. But it's very fun.
I mean,
it's very fun.
I'm a Star Wars fan. That sounds exactly up my alley. So yeah, I'll watch Predator, and then I'll watch Predator Badlands, and then I'll come back and I'll let you guys know what I thought of it.
Amazing. Great. We'll do it in our audience recommend section at the beginning. Kind of, Lauren, what do you think?
We'll have a review update. Yeah.
Excellent.
I'm doing it, you guys. I'm going to watch the new Predator movie.
I look forward to your review of that film.
Thank you.
And okay, so to round off my 2025 films is a film that you are definitely not going to want to see. It's called Silent Night, Deadly Night, and it's the 2025 remake.
Oh
so
we saw the trailer for this, and I was like, I will not be watching that.
No, I saw the trailer, and I have to. So yeah, we saw it together, and I have to say that I didn't have high hopes for the trailer. For the film based on the trailer. There is a certain kind of horror.
I'm not surprised.
There's a certain kind of horror film that just seems to want to be bleak, and in narrative, in the kind of aesthetic and the color palette, and it's like, oh, everything's really serious. And I like, as you know, as I mentioned when we were talking about Killer Clowns, I love the
Mhm.
campiness of it. I have to say, I was
Mhm.
actually quite surprised at this film, and I really enjoyed it. I
Well,
think,
that's good because from the trailer, I was like, this either takes itself too seriously and doesn't realize it's ridiculous, or the trailer is a setup and
yeah,
it knows it's ridiculous and it leans into the fact it's ridiculous.
yeah. So this film is written and directed by Mike P. Nelson, and it is a remake of the 1984
Mhm.
Christmas slasher of the same name, which is, I think, if you're looking for a Christmas horror film for next year, it's a great, it's a great,
Mhm.
it's a great film to watch. And there are sequels as well, which are also quite fun. This kind of starts pretty similar to the original film. We have Rohan Campbell as Billy and Ruby Modin as Pamela, or Pam as she's known in the film. So both films, the original and this latest remake, star Billy, who's 5 at the time, and his parents, and he's visiting his elderly granddad in a care home on Christmas Eve. When he's visiting, so in the original film, Billy goes and he sees that his catatonic grandfather. He comes to consciousness and then warns Billy that Santa Claus punishes those who are naughty. So he has that kind
Mhm.
of, Santa Claus as a punisher in his head.
Mhm.
Um, in this remake, Billy's grandfather also says something similar, but then he also witnesses his grandfather's traumatic death. So he says this thing to him that's really quite scary as a young child, and
Yeah.
then he starts convulsing and he dies in front of him. Um, then
Which,
again,
that's gonna
yeah,
fuck anyone up.
oh, 100%. Like, I think we can all agree that in all of these films, Billy is a very severely traumatized child who,
Yep.
yeah, and also his brother in the original film also ends up being quite traumatized around Christmas, and it's understandable. So then what happens next, just to kind of up the ante of Christmas trauma? So they're driving home from the care home, and in both films, a man dressed in a Santa suit stops the car with Billy and his parents, and then violently murders his parents. So he then also has this traumatic experience with his grandpa, and then on the
Mhm.
way home, he witnesses his parents getting killed. And then we join Billy years later, and this is where the films really differ. So we skip ahead to Billy as a young adult, and he is in the middle of his annual Christmas murder spree. This takes place over Advent. He has to commit one murder for every day of Advent, and once he's committed the murder, he gets a bit of their blood on his finger and then marks them in this little book that he has around that has all of the days, just to kind of like
Oh.
seal it in. He is spurred on by a voice that he can hear in his head that he calls Charlie, who tells him who to murder, eggs him on, and at various times in the film he does have conversations with this voice.
Okay.
Which is, it sounds bizarre, but you're kind of like, okay, it's an interesting twist on that
Yes,
idea.
that's the premise.
And the narrative then takes place in a small American town called Hackett, which is very much chosen because of its pun,
I was
where
gonna say.
he meets Pamela. Pamela works in her dad's shop
Mhm.
selling it's called, so it's an antique shop, and at the moment they're selling lots of Christmas stuff, but I'm like,
Sure.
well, it's like a day or so before Christmas. Why are you still putting up Christmas trees? How are you making any money selling Christmas ornaments
Mary,
and decorations? I
I
just
suspect
this
that
is
you have never watched a Hallmark Christmas movie
oh
or a
I have. This is one of the things that always frustrates me, is when I'm like, this business does not make viable economic sense.
But that in of itself
worked
is
in
a Christmas
retail.
movie joke, isn't it?
I've worked in retail. You start getting to like the 23rd, the 24th, and there's nothing. And you're also not trying to, decorate more stuff. Your decorations would already be done. Like, anyway, that is a rant that is not actually relevant to the film. That's the concept of the film. If you're thinking that, I want to go and watch that, but I don't want it spoiled, then skip ahead to the next bit, because I'm now going to spoil it for Lauren.
If you want a Hallmark Christmas slasher, then this is for you.
Yeah, because on the one hand, maybe Billy is crazy and insane and mentally ill, and it is maybe this film is leaning into exploiting mental illness. But on the other hand, maybe there is something supernatural going on, and maybe the individual that killed Billy's parents was a man called Charlie, who had also had a voice in his head who was telling him that he had to kill around Christmas. And maybe this voice had told him that in that car he would find two adult people who had just come from a care home where they had murdered an elderly gentleman in that care home. And maybe when Billy killed that man, or his mum killed that man in that kind of escape before she died, and then Billy went over to this serial killer dressed as Santa and clasped his hands, maybe there was something supernatural where the Charlie of that individual went kind of into Billy, and then now this Charlie is guiding him and telling him, you should kill this person and you should kill this person. And we've already seen in this film that the voice in his head does actually and very accurately direct Billy to murder very, very bad people. For example, an elderly man comes into the shop and gets a little bit handsy and over familiar with Pam. Pam doesn't seem to mind this. Charlie and Billy do not like this. So, of course, Charlie tells Billy, go to this man's house, murder him, which he does. Then days later,
of course,
this man's daughter rocks up, discovers that her dad is dead. The police look into this house and find, here's his missing wife, who's been missing for years, dead in the basement because he was a very bad man. And then another example, and this is a massive spoiler, but it's one of... Craig said this was too much. I actually quite enjoyed this film, this part of the film, but maybe it is too much. He follows one of the older women, someone who maybe has like cougar vibes or wishful cougar vibes. He drives ages and ages and ages out of town until he gets to this warehouse. Charlie, the voice in his head, which again may be the kind of spirit of this previous Christmas serial killer,
like a Melmoth style curse.
Has told him where to go and where to drive and how to get there. He turns up. Everyone's dressed in kind of Santa costumes. Great, because he has been killing in Santa costumes. He has a bunch of them. He puts it on, goes in
they're
to this
already
warehouse.
red.
Exactly. Goes into this warehouse. And do you want to take any guesses as to what kind of Christmas party or gathering or group of very bad people this might be?
I mean, is it like a swingers party, some kind of cult ritual, some kind of human auction, some kind of Bitcoin sale?
They're Nazis.
Oh man,
then
that
they're
should have been
Nazis.
next after Bitcoin.
He walks into it. It's a
I mean,
Nazi
that is
gathering.
pretty culty.
It is culty. It is culty. And you can, I don't need to tell you what happens next, but we
punch Nazis.
Exactly. And then so the film ends. Throughout the film in this town of Hackett, you see that young children keep getting abducted. He and Pam find out the person who is doing this, and they find these kids, some of whom are still alive, some of them aren't, rescue them. But then a cop turns up who is also her ex-boyfriend and kills Billy before Pam can say, no, wait, he was, you know, he's just rescued
He's the
these
good
kids.
guy.
He's a good guy. And also, it turns out it might have been more of a kind of town conspiracy involving maybe also law enforcement. And as Billy is dying, Pam holds his hand,
Pam
and then we
becomes the
have
first Santa killer.
another one. So I think this is a very creative remake that the trailer really did not sell very well.
No.
I it's not at all what I was
That sounds
expecting.
way more fun. I thought it was
But
going to be bleak and not in a
yes,
good way.
yes. So I thoroughly enjoyed this as a Christmas horror.
Mhm.
It is very violent. So if violence is not for you, then this is not for you.
Well,
But
it sounds like it's a proper slasher.
it is a slash, yeah, 100%, absolutely. But yeah, like I thought that as a remake, it did exactly what I want a remake to do, which is take the initial idea and then do something different with it and creative and fun. So yeah,
Yeah. Amazing. Well, that was not what I expected the review of that film to be. So
No,
it's nice to be surprised.
yes, it is. And talking
Oh,
about
interesting.
surprises, we are going to finish on what we're looking forward to, but before we get to that, we're just going to do a quick retrospective of my 2025 highlights, and then also,
Yes.
Lauren, we're maybe going to talk about some of your 2025 highlights if you want to.
Sure.
But I've limited myself to 3 films. I'm not going to go into any depth because I have talked about them on our channel, so you can go and find those episodes and hear my thoughts on them. But my absolute favorite film of last year was Sinners. It was a fabulous film and I loved every minute of it, and it's everything and more that I would want from a vampire film. If you haven't seen it yet, then absolutely go and watch it. I was watching the dance scene again in the barn, where it's
Yeah.
like music is essentially a haunting, and you're playing a song that is maybe a song written or produced, created by somebody else, or maybe it's inspired by them, and in playing that song, the musical instruments, singing, dancing, you are conjuring that up into the present, and it's also looking forward to the future. And I think that it is just that really beautiful way of looking at music and looking at that that kind of togetherness of musical experiences, where it is very almost beyond time, which is, I think, quite vampiric, you know,
Yeah.
in and of itself. And yeah, the soundtrack, amazing soundtrack, one of the best that I've heard. So Sinners is at the top of my 2025 list. I also have to talk about 28 Years Later. Absolutely loved that film. I'm still thinking about it now, and I will maybe come back to that in a little minute when I talk about what I'm looking forward to this year. But then obviously I had to talk about Frankenstein. Frankenstein was another one that I really, really loved. I thought it was so beautiful and gorgeous. And I also really enjoyed that I got to see it with you, Lauren. So both my film highlights, but also my cinema theatrical highlights.
Experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
So those are my
Yeah.
in a year where I have watched a lot of horror films, those are my top 3.
Okay. Well, Frankenstein is also in my top things of the year.
Oh my gosh.
I was so pleased with how much I loved it. And I was so relieved that it was all of the things I wanted it to be, and then it also gave me something new. And kind of like you just said about Silent Night, Deadly Night, like I want an adaptation, I want a remake to do something a bit different and a bit exciting. And I thought that, you know, it's been enough time now. So, you know, making Elizabeth the same, you know, the same sort of age when they meet rather than as children, and making her still kind of his sister, but his sister in a different way because she's William's fiance, aging William up, changing the relationship between Frankenstein and his father so that it changes that womb envy aspect of Frankenstein, playing with the idea of war, introducing the character, as you called him, of Mr. Syphilis, and having that idea that there were people that would be interested in Victor's invention and there were people that would be interested in this, and having him older. Like, there's a big part of the book that is important that he's this kind of child prodigy, in that he's not, because he's a fucking moron that hasn't been to university. I think for a contemporary Frankenstein, having him be an adult, having him be Oscar Isaacs with his rock star energy and still being a fucking prick, being someone who has the knowledge and has the family and has the brilliance and the charisma and the charm, and chooses to be a piece of shit who cannot see value and cannot see beauty and all of those things. I think, you know, Guillermo doesn't need me to tell you that there's a lot to be said of that in 2025. Definitely not. I started the year off with Nosferatu, which I know you didn't like it as much as I did, but I think I remember watching it and thinking, feel like the Gothic is really coming back into center stage, and I think there's a lot of things that I'm excited for coming out in the next couple of years, like some new looks into things like Dracula, probably not Wuthering Heights, but but some of the others.
It's still exploiting that Gothic aesthetic.
Yes, and I think for me, the fact that like I started the year, I know technically Nosferatu came out at the end of 2024, but like starting the year on Nosferatu and like finishing the year on Frankenstein, I was a bit like, oh man, what a year for Gothic cinema and like Gothic aesthetics. Like, that's such a huge thing. And I think the other thing that I would recommend from like my top highlights of the year would be Leigh Bardugo's The Familiar, which did actually come out in hardback last year, in 2024. So not last year, the year before, but it came back in paperback in the summer of 2025, which reminded me that my sister had bought it for me for Christmas and I hadn't read it yet. It is a sort of historical fantasy, kind of magical realism. It's a standalone. It's set in the reign of, I believe, Philip II of Spain. And it really explores Spain's identity as a country that had had this very diverse, very accepting, very multicultural existence, and then suddenly became the home of the Inquisition and, you know, under this very authoritarian rule. And it has this whole storyline about like magic and language and heritage and identity. And I just thought, again, like in terms of a Gothic classic, like it's a modern novel, it's obviously a modern novel, but to me it did read like something that could have come out of the late 18th century. So I'd really recommend that. And then the last film that I watched this year, which was Knives Out, Wake Up Dead Man.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Because I saved it for Christmas Day, because my mum and my dad and I always watch the new Knives Out film when it comes out on Christmas Day. Like, that's what we've done for the last three, this is the third one. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, the third Knives Out movie, Daniel Craig returns as Benoit Blanc, his best role ever. And once again, Rian Johnson produced a film that is genuinely a good mystery. It is funny.
We should do an episode about the Knives Out series and talk about why murder mysteries,
why they're so good,
are so Gothic.
And particularly like because in both the first Knives Out and the last Knives Out, and I'm not going to spoil the last Knives Out film because it has only been out a few weeks on Netflix, so I'm not going to spoil it, but both the first Knives Out film and the last Knives Out film, the third one, and I hope there are more. I would love this to be like a multi-film. I want Daniel Craig to be doing this until he's like 80. I was like, oh, it's that person. And then I thought, no, that's too obvious. And I doubted myself and I said, no, it's not that person. And it was that person, but it wasn't the way or the reason that I thought
Yeah.
it was that person. It's a really genuinely good mystery. But what it also does, and I think, yeah, maybe we should do an episode, is what it also does is use tropes and conventions so effectively. It uses Gothic timing and aesthetics and sensationalism, particularly something like a locked door mystery. You know, I really felt like, particularly the third one, Wake Up Dead Man, and not just because it's about Catholic priests, was an incredibly Gothic film. They're all very Gothic, even down to the fact that Benoit Blanc has like a kind of Cajun accent. Like, he's from the South, quote unquote.
He is
And
Detective
he's
KFC.
literally like, and he's
Yeah.
such an enigmatic character. Like, we know so little but so much about him, and that's so fun. Like, it very much gives Le Fanu's Through a Gas Darkly and the Doctor's Chronicles in that, where it's like Dr. Parnassus's notes, and we're like, what the fuck is this? This is so weird. And, obviously Sherlock Holmes, but also Edgar Allan Poe, that kind of the real gothicness of mystery fiction. I think Knives Out really captured it. So that's kind of my year-end high note was Wake Up Dead Man. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I thought that Josh O'Connor was really exceptional in a very difficult role, which is a likable Catholic priest.
Yeah, but it can be done. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent highlights. I even though I wouldn't necessarily pick them all myself, I think you have chosen very, very well. And yeah,
Thank you.
dear listeners, dear watchers, please, if you have any highlights, then comment below. We love hearing from you. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
we will be returning with a new So You Don't Like Horror in probably February, March time, so that I have time
Yep.
to watch some films. So look out for that.
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
we'll end with just what I'm looking forward to in this
Mm-hmm.
upcoming year. Obviously, my highlight last year, 28 Years Later. The sequel,
Mm-hmm.
28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, is
Yep.
coming out soon, and we will probably get Dr. Kathleen Hudson, our good friend, to come
Yeah.
back and we'll do a special review episode of that, because it looks fantastic, and I think that there will be more cult and religious aspects. The
Mm-hmm.
tagline, I think, is something like "Fear is the new faith," so I am so into that. And obviously, Lauren, I know zombies aren't your favorite thing, and they are quite violent, so I will be here to take you through all the interesting parts of
Thank
that
you. I
film.
appreciate it.
Another film that I know that you will be looking forward to is Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride. So we're
The
getting
Bride.
more
Yeah.
Frankenstein content. I don't need to explain why I'm looking forward to that. And then we also
Mm-hmm.
have the sequel to Ready or Not, which is Ready or Not 2, Here I Come. And Lauren, I'm not going to tell you anything about that film, because I will review that when I watch it, and
Yep.
I will tell you about it. But all I need to say is that in this sequel, Sarah Michelle Gellar is starring. So yes, I'm excited.
That's all I need to know. Yeah. Oh, that sounds good. Yeah, I am looking forward to The Bride for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm I'm not looking forward to Wuthering Heights.
Yeah.
But from a pop culture perspective, I cannot wait for Wuthering Heights. Like, I'm
Yeah.
really excited for what that brings. and kind of like, yeah, how that film is received and what comes from it. I'm also hoping to either go and see, or perhaps I suspect it might get televised. I would quite like to see Cynthia Erivo's One Woman Dracula. I'm
Mm-hmm.
really,
Yeah.
really fascinated by how that's going to work. And the other thing that I'm looking forward to, because it is perhaps one of the more Gothic of Shakespeare's plays, is the Riz Ahmed Hamlet. that's coming
Yes.
out at some point this year. A trailer dropped for that recently, and I think it looks fantastic. So that's kind of what's on my my list for the year.
Fabulous,
I'm looking forward
fabulous Gothic
to how
horizons.
angry we
Yeah.
feel after we go to see Wuthering Heights.
Lots of exciting Gothic and horror things to look forward to. So thank you for listening if you've made it this far. And we hope that you're as excited as we are for some of the offerings that 2026 has to bring.
Yep.
As always,
And if you've got
like, subscribe,
recommendations,
share, recommend, get in touch with us. We love hearing from you. And
we do.
in the meantime, as always, stay safe and stay spooky.
Stay safe and stay spooky.